Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance, where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. Another week, another big crop of new arrivals, but honestly with less impact than I expected. I mean, yes, Beyonce impacted at the very top with Renaissance, but only 3 songs were counted, far less than what Drake got a month ago. Combine that with some other reasonably predictable debuts, plus Odessa falling off in spades, this week felt surprisingly calm and more of a reset to normality, which is definitely welcome before whatever big album bomb comes in next. But okay, let's get to that top 10, which saw a considerable amount of movement. I mean, firstly, Break My Soul by Beyonce and number 1 has become the first dance song since Rain On Me by Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande to top the Billboard Hot 100, with considerable streaming and sales boosts from the album alongside the strong radio. This seems to be what will dominate throughout the rest of the year at number 1, which I'm absolutely not complaining about. That also takes us to Cold Heart P&A remix by Elton John and Dua Lipa at number 2, which is holding steady but nearly approaching the year on the charts, which means it could be in serious danger should another big artist come along and cause havoc with their own dance project. Which here now Drake rolled out honestly never mind, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Good riddance. Speaking of which, Beyonce saw some nice debuts in the top 5 for Summer Renaissance at number 3 and THIQUE at number 4. Don't expect these to hold their spots next week, they were much lower debuts on the Hot 100 and have very little chance of surviving next week on that format. What will likely rebound big is Numb by Marshmello and Khalid at number 5, where the radio is huge and streaming and sales are solid. Given the song's stability on the Hot 100 during the Beyonce album bomb, it's gonna jump considerably next week. Hopefully that means it can overtake Cold Heart with time. But back to Beyonce with Pure/Honey at number 6, no expectations this is gonna stick. Same deal with Massive by Drake at number 7, where it's starting to lose radio with pitiful streaming. This is in serious danger of being overtaken harder, especially with how the album got knocked this week, more on that later. The real case of what can overtake it will most likely be Bizarrap Music Sessions Volume 52 by Bizarrap and Quevedo at number 8, which is gaining considerably on streaming with solid sales. Obviously radio ain't touching this just yet, but with how it's going, I can see this going higher than where it initially peaked. That just leaves our last 2, which would have gained this week thanks to Drake falling out of the top 10, with Don't You Worry by the Black Eyed Peas, Shakira and David Guetta at number 9, and Nazareno by Veruco at number 10. Not much more to say, let's pray that the latter overtakes Don't You Worry at some point, because we really don't need another Hot 100 contender for the Black Eyed Peas in 2022. But here's what's interesting about this week. When you look at our fall-offs, literally every single one was Odessa. The album bomb just got cratered this week. Kinda unfortunate for songs like Love Letter, given that they deserved a chance to stick around, but hey, it unfortunately wasn't that surprising. That also translates to our falls, where Odessa lost to Wide Awake with Charlie Houston at 44, and Forgive Me with Izzy Bizu down hard to 42. Both will be gone next week, and that's a real disappointment. On the topic of disappointments, Everything Goes On by Porter Robinson is just continuing to not catch momentum at 31. I'm really concerned this could be a flop single and potentially miss the year unless it deserves better than this. Even more worrying is the surprise collapse of Lost Without You by Kygo and Dean Lewis at 21. Honestly, what happened to this song's momentum? It really fell hard out of the top 10, even with the high debuts. Thank God we have some mediocrity to outright garbage dropping to balance things out, with Hot and It by Tiesto and Charlie XCX utterly collapsing to 23, good, as well as Drake's mostly bad stress of falls this week. Yes, I really like Flights Booked down to 19, but Overdrive at 30, Calling My Name at 18, Texco Green at 14, and Falling Back at 11. Absolutely zero complaints there, they were long overdue to exit. But unsurprisingly, given that this was a post-album bomb week with a majority of low fall-offs, we saw some rebounds to fill in the gaps, but not many at all. I mean, it's definitely not in our comebacks where Baby Girl by Disco Lions returned yet again to 48 off of consistent streaming as well as the music video. This song really needs to get some notable push to have any shot of the year-end list at this point. I hope that happens sooner rather than later. That being said, our 3 jumps this week were mostly just rebounds to where they once were. Afraid to Feel by LF System at 41, Heaven Takes You Home by Swedish House Mafia and Connie Constance at 32, and Bizarrap Music Sessions Volume 51 by Bizarrap and Viana Antiano at 25, which in the latter case seems to have remained consistently steady and carried additional momentum from Volume 52's run on the Hot 100. That's all really good signs, and yeah, they're all really good songs. On the topic of things I really like, our new arrivals, beginning with something surprising in number 50, Twin Flame by KAYTRANADA and Anderson .Paak.
Twin flame. Twin flame.
I've been been wondering where KAYTRANADA would take his sound after arguably his biggest ever hit in Intimidated. I mean, I definitely expected more rap collabs given his insanely funky, almost boom bap sound, but I was also wondering who the hell he would recruit next. I certainly didn't expect a second collab with Anderson .Paak though, who after Glowed Up showed he can work wonders on this kind of production, and really, I'm surprised these two haven't worked together more. But anyways, here's a new single that managed to debut a week early due to insane streaming and sales. Is it better than Glowed Up? Honestly, no, but I still really like this one a lot. Of course, the production is excellent with the hard-hitting percussion against the distant pianos, with some really nice crowd noise integration to give the song a lively sound that, combined with the vocal layering, makes the song sound like it's being recorded in a bar. It's a nice touch there. Anderson .Paak is also great. His distinct voice shines amongst this mix with some real personality as he raps about the various things him and this insanely hot woman share with each other. It's a really nice dance floor hookup jam that, even with the chorus that does feel a little bit repetitive and empty at spots, still absolutely slaps. Great song, really can't wait to see how high it jumps next week. Check this out. Number 49, Baila Conmigo by Tiesto. Honest question, who wanted this? I mean, given that we already had two songs with this exact same title and sound charted in 2020, both of which were absolutely terrible for the record, it's not just that the debut original has felt thoroughly overexposed and played out, it's not even fresh anymore. Tiesto is over 2 years late to this. But okay, rock bottom expectations and yeah, this is absolute garbage. Might be the very well the worst song that he's ever made, and that's saying something. I mean, I could literally just say it's a carbon copy of the original that somehow makes the song sound like high art in comparison, but delve deeper and you realize just how amateurish and painfully incompetent this thing is all the way down. The god-awful vocal production where the sample is so loud it dominates the mix, the complete lack of atmosphere where the trumpet has nowhere near the warmth of the original, the fact this song can't even last 2.5 minutes, which makes an already unfinished original sound like a demo, and to top it all off, some of the most embarrassing, empty, and laziest drops I've heard from Tiesto, period, where the percussion sounds cheap, the stems sound like literal farts, and the complete lack of atmosphere gives this no punch or bite whatsoever. It's not just a bad song, it's a completely despicable cash grab that makes an already bad original song somehow even worse. There's no redeeming qualities here at all. Absolute garbage. This is embarrassing. One of the worst songs to chart here in recent memory. Fuck this song. Next. Number 36, Colors by Gryffin, Blanke, and Eyelar.
When I discover your colors, and we could be free again. We see each other, colors, I see your colors.
Okay, so Griffin's last single with Mia, Reckless, didn't do much for me at all, but given his other singles for this album roll have been very good, plus how much I've liked Blanke's melodic work in recent years, I had hopes for this, especially with them bringing the singer from Purple Disco Machine's Dopamine of all places, and yeah, wow, this is a way better song than Reckless ever was. I mean, yes, you can easily draw a parallel to Awake era ILLENIUM in terms of the rich, smooth atmosphere with impeccable melodic build-ups that transition to some really nice future bass drops, which, even despite the chipmunk vocals, do have a lot of emotional flavor that I really enjoyed. But also I love Eyelar's vocals here. She's got the sort of cinematic bend to her voice that fits in a similar vein to Fiora, or any number of the vocalists on Seven Lions music, which is absolutely a compliment. I mean, it's not the most unique song in the world. Again, you can definitely call it an ILLENIUM ripoff, and I will get that. But for what it is, I really like this, and I rebuilt my hopes for a life to be a really great album from Griffin. This is really good. Check it out. Number 16, Turn On The Lights Again by Fred Again and Swedish Mafia featuring Future. So okay, given how much I've loved Fred Again's work, including both his albums that I actually checked out and loved about as equally, it was only right that I would check out his Boiler Room set to really get a grasp on his broader appeal in a club setting, and yeah, it was excellent. Tons of insanely dark atmospheric bangers with gorgeous production across the board, plus Fred Again providing the energy and love for his craft. It's one of the best Boiler Room sets I've seen in recent memory, hands down. This, however, is an interesting case. A remix of one of Future's biggest earliest songs from 2012 in collaboration with Swedish House Mafia that attracts so much praise that Fred Again decided to release it early for the public to listen to. That gave me hopes for this, and yeah, this is leagues above the original for me. It's funny too, having listened to Actual Life 1 and 2, this could have honestly fit fit very well amongst those albums, especially with how Future's vocals are integrated alongside an absolutely gorgeous garage beat that creates such a nocturnal atmosphere, especially when the willowy synth melody and the distinct UK dubstep wubs come in before the drops and sound fantastic. I absolutely get why this became Fred Again's highest charting song. It's just a goddamn gorgeous remix of a mediocre original song that improves on it in every way and has the same general appeal for both Future fans and fans of both names involved in production. So yeah, great song, really hope it sticks around. Number 13, All That Really Matters by ILLENIUM and Teddy Swims.
Cause that's all that really matters in the end. Find somewhere you can come home to. Find someone that'll die for you.
Is it wrong for me to say that my expectations for this were quite low? I mean, putting aside the mixed response, ILLENIUM's recent releases have just been total misses across the board, and really you can tell from their runs on the charts they're starting to reach the same phase as Griffin had last year, where he just cannot get a stable hit coming off of Story of My Life, which is actually one of his best songs in a long time. So okay, new song with Teddy Swims, who I really liked on that song Loveless with Telecast. Maybe this is actually passable? Well, honestly, it mostly is. In fact, I quite like this a lot more than I expected. I mean, it helps that Teddy Swims' vocals are fantastic here. His deep, rich voice really matches the atmosphere of the song quite well, and he sounds great, especially on that build-up. But credit must also be given to ILLENIUM for going back to a style of future bass that worked for him on his earlier albums. That's 2 debuts this week where I've brought up this sound. Wow. With some really nice Affiliate-esque build-ups where the piano sounds great against the distant swells of ambient pads, orchestration, and booming percussion that flows into drops that might even be better than Colors for me. Again, it's nothing mind-blowing, but considering the low standards I hold ILLENIUM after his last 2 singles, this was a welcome surprise. Really good song, I like this quite a bit too. Number 6, Pure/Honey by Beyonce.
Stuck in my honey, 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 honey. I put the sweet, sweet on your tongue. Don't it taste yummy, 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 yummy. The sticky.
So now we get to what's easily the biggest story of the charts this week, Beyonce's new album Renaissance getting 3 debuts that all seem like deeper cuts with way less chance for staying power compared to even Drake's songs still in the charts. So okay, this is a 2-part track, seems to be a popular highlight in the circles I follow, but honestly, I didn't care for this much at all. I mean, I'll give it that Honey is a pretty nice little disco song where Beyonce goes into a more of a sexually charged mode with singing that sounds really good against the crowd noise and light disco percussion. But my god, I did not like Pure at all. It's atonal, lacking in clear melody, the vocal samples are not particularly well integrated, the flow is a mess, and Beyonce's rapping is awkward and still remains her weakest asset as a performer. Hell, even if I like Honey, some of the vocal sample integration, especially near the end, just sounds really off. So no, it's not terrible. I can respect the attempt for 2-track structure, and Honey does save it from being an awful song, but it's not good either. Next, number 4, Thick by Beyonce.
That's that thick. Baby, that's that thick. That's that thick. Look at this shit.
Thankfully though, this one was way better for me. More of a hip house song where yes, Beyonce is still doing the rapping stuff, but honestly it fits more with this kind of heavier production where there's more defined melody and the splashes of horns as well as those driving synths, where the ridiculousness of the lyrics fits the clubby vibe and reminds me a lot of the old school female empowerment anthems in house in the 90s. More than anything, it's a way more commanding presence than Pure ever was, with better production overall. So yeah, a clear highlight from the album for me, really damn good, check this out. And finally number 3, Summer Renaissance by Beyonce.
If you make my body talk, I'ma leave you in a trance. Got you walking with a limp, let this body make you dance, 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 dance.
I mean, it makes total sense that this was the highlight of Beyonce's debuts this week, focusing on an interpretation of the disco classic I Feel Loved by Donna Summer, and making a big tribute to the late great disco legend, hence the title. It also helps that this is easily my favourite of the Beyonce debuts this week, without question. The production maintains the rich disco vibes of Donna Summer's original, whilst adding some really nice modern touches like the percussion, the wavering synths, and that really smooth bass, as Beyonce goes more towards her higher vocal range in more of a singing mode that absolutely works for a song this surreal. Green. Lyrically, it's also one of the best cases of universal empowerment to both women and LGBTQ people on the entire album, as Beyonce gets explicit as all hell in her connection with this man on the dance floor, but painted with the right kind of universality to make it feel like a statement to her target audience, especially as the closing track. I mean, not much more to say. Outside Break My Soul, this is easily my favourite track on the album and an absolutely terrific closer. I may not have loved Renaissance as an album all the way through, it did feel a bit tedious and wasn't particularly interesting to listen to all the way, but this was definitely what elevated it to above average for me all on its own. Fantastic song, really hope this sticks around the longest of the debuts from Beyonce's this week, it's great. And yeah, that was this week. Pretty damn good if I'd say so myself, especially with the Beyonce tracks being mostly really good and the other debuts being welcome surprises. I mean, for the best of the week, it's easily going to Summer Renaissance by Beyonce, but honourable runner-up is going to be a tie between Twin Flame by KAYTRANADA and Innocent Paak, and Turn On The Lights Again by Fred Again and Swedish Mafia featuring Future. Those are some really nice hip-hop fusions that work for me. For the worst, Baila Conmigo by Tiesto just runs away with it. What a garbage song. But I'm unfortunately going to have to give Pure/Honey by Beyonce the dishonourable runner-up. I mean, one half being good is not enough to detract from a terrible first half and some baffling production choices. It just didn't click for me. Next week, I don't expect much shift given how stable all of these debuts could be, so it could be a cool down, you never know. I mean, I'm definitely not complaining about that. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.